Hello, and welcome to another adventure with Exploring with Jason. In the past video, and I'll provide you with the link. I was at Mount Cemetery here in Akron, Ohio, talking about the Wells family who is buried in that cemetery that were Titanic survivors. Well, what if I tell you there's another group of people, or actually they're both sisters, that were also Titanic survivors, that were, but they're not buried at Mount Peace. Today we're at Glendale Cemetery, visiting two graves today, and talk about the lives of two sisters. The first one we're going to talk about is Ellen Hocking, who was also a Titanic survivor. So, and then after we get done here, we're going to talk about her sister. Her name was Ellen. So, but first we're going to talk about Elizabeth. So, without further ado, if you want to learn about the life and about these two Titanic survivors, let's walk and explore together as we learn about the life and legacy of Elizabeth Hocking. Elizabeth was born Eliza Needs in Tresco, Isle of Sicily. She was the second daughter of George Needs and Anne Pender. Her sisters were Mary Elizabeth, Henrietta, and Ellen, which Ellen is the one we're going to visit later. The family moved to the village of Madron near Pennis, Cornwall in 1860. She married a William Rowe Hocking there in 1884. William was a baker, and they lived in 27 Leicester Terrace. They later moved to Algernon Street, and they had 7 children: Sydney, Emily, Ellen, William, Thomas, Horace, Richard, and George. Sons Sydney and Richard would later move to the U.S. in the early 1900s. And they lived in at 45 in Akron, Ohio. Sometime after her husband died, Elizabeth married someone by Mr. Guy. They lived at Mary Street, and her husband at the time, Mr. Guy, as what they call him, abused Elizabeth, and after his death, she took back the name Hocking. And she decided to join her sons here in the U.S. George came back to bring her and several others to America. And they were to set sail on the Oceanic but because of the coal strike, they were switched to the Titanic. They traveled in second class, and after the disaster, Elizabeth's second daughter and second grandson were rescued on lifeboat number 4. Unfortunately, her son George was down with the ship. She was met in New York by her son Sidney, and had come from which he came from in Akron, Ohio. Elizabeth lived here in Akron for 2 years on Gale Street. Unfortunately, on April 14, on the evening of April 14, 1914, Dr. C.E. Norris and C.W. Milken found Elizabeth laying in the middle of East Market Street in front of City Hospital. She had very bad head wounds and other injuries. She would perish at 5 in the morning from a very bad head wound. And on November 15, 1914, 2 years to the day of her rescue from the lifeboat from the Titanic, her cause of death was stated that she was killed by a car or a streetcar or a mugging, according to reports. So she died. We don't know if it was murder or if there was some that she, or if there was some reason. But from the sources that I've read, there was no investigation, or if there was, they were not able to conclusively say it was murder, but they do believe it was just accidental. So, but that's the life and legacy of Elizabeth. So what do you think of her story? Hers was very tragic. And like I said, they don't know if it was murder or other things. From what I've read and seen, they can only list it as an accident. And I do believe they did try to investigate it, from what I could tell. But I don't know. I'll let you guys decide that. If she was killed, murdered, or if something else going on with her so I'll let you debate. Now, let's get going, and let's go to another video. Let's go to visit her sister, Ellen, who was also the survivor of the Titanic. welcome, and we're now standing in front of Elizabeth Hawkins' sister's grave, who was also a Titanic survivor, or Ellen Wilkes. So this is a part 2, and the final installment of the Titanic survivors that are buried here in Summit County. And like I said earlier in the video, that I'll post a link below in the description, and to the previous video I did on the Wells family. But without further ado, let's learn about the life and the legacy of Ellen Wilkes, Elizabeth Hawkins' sister. In June of 1920, or in 1920 census of Akron, William chose his wife, Rolina, and son, Walter Wilkes. She was a daughter of Ellen was a daughter of George Needs, who was born in Yankton, Bristol, Somerset, and Ann Pender, who was born in Briar City, Isle of Cornwall. Her sisters, as I stated before, were Mary Ellen Needs, Elizabeth, and Henrietta. Ellen came over on the Titanic via Carpathia, the ship that picked up the survivors in 1912, and where they landed in New York from Southampton, England. Her sister Elizabeth, who we spoke and touched on earlier, and they were two of the 690 survivors from the Titanic. They were able to meet up with their nephew, Sidney, as I've spoken before, in Akron. Ellen was on lifeboat number 16. And she became a recluse and was discovered by neighbors living in squalor without heat or running water. She was suffering from frostbite and partial amputation of her feet. And performed prior to her death. She had 9 cats, and her home during her removal, who was coming in through broken basement window. Her sister Elizabeth, and they had, Ellen had 2 grandnephews, James Ashbourne and John Woolcock of Akron, and 2 great nieces, Mrs. Fred Brunley of Barberton and Mrs. Nora May Wharton of Cleveland, and a nephew, Arthur Ellis of Copley. And Ellen died April 25th or 27th of 1955, and she's buried along with her husband, William. And that's the life and legacy of the 2 sisters. So what do you think of those 2, what do you think of these 2 ladies who survived the Titanic? I think it's pretty remarkable, and So if you like what you see and like what I do and the content I'm providing, give a like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you on the next adventure.